Okay, we all play mental magic tricks on ourselves, whether we realize it or not, but when that magical thinking meets the information overload of our modern world, it can get messy. Here to share more, we welcome the author of The Age of Magical Overthinking, Amanda Montell. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. You explained it perfectly.
Oh, thank you so much. We were talking about it makes sense as a concept, but it's difficult to put into words.
It is.
And you did it so beautifully in this book.
Thank you.
So let's talk about magical thinking, because that's a concept that we can kind of understand that people have been talking about for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So magical thinking is an age-old cognitive quirk. It describes our tendency to believe that our internal thoughts or feelings can affect external events. And this crops up during times of crisis, when we feel like we're lacking agency or control over our lives, the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
We might think, oh, if I do this particular ritual, maybe it will bring them back. And this is a natural and healthy coping mechanism. It's just the way that our minds and bodies work. But I argue in this book that when our innate superstitions and mysticisms and irrational decision-making strategies combine with modern phenomena like social media, the information age, the excess of information that we're forced to contend with every day, it causes a phenomenon called magical overthinking, which comes with downsides.
It makes a lot of sense. It's just so overwhelming, the stuff that we're sifting through every day. And you kind of begin the introduction with talking about trying to clear your own mind. Was that the beginning of the journey of writing this book?
Yeah, the book was really inspired by this notion that despite living in the information age, life only seems to be making less sense. It doesn't seem to be feeling any better. Why, when a topic is living proverbially rent-free in my head, do I feel like if I just Google it enough, if I just type enough of my feelings to this robot, it will make them go away?
Yeah.
And that is just simply delulu, as the kids are saying.
And Googling the same thing over and over in different variations, looking for the answer that you are hoping to find.
Exactly.
We all do.
Yes, we all do that. We all engage in sort of rituals and irrational behaviors to help put our overthinking to bed, and it just doesn't seem to be working. And then I came across all of this research about cognitive biases. Cognitive bias is a term that was coined by the behavioral economists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman in the 70s, and hundreds of these psychological shortcuts that we take naturally to make sense of the world enough to survive it have been described over the years. And in this book, I chose basically my 11 favorites, the 11 that I thought were most relevant to my life and to the broader culture, and I used them as a lens to explore a variety of irrational behaviors that we see in the zeitgeist, from celebrity worship to embrace of Instagram manifestation.
Oh my gosh, we're all guilty of certain of them. Let's get into some of those. Let's talk about the Taylor Swift of it all. You kind of jump in with her as a great example of that hero halo effect. We all look to her sort of irrationally as someone who should be our perfect best friend, but we don't know her.
Yes, it's true. So the opening chapter of the book was really inspired by this question that I had been toiling over. Why is celebrity worship and dethronement, those cycles, why is that becoming so intense? And I argue in that chapter that it has to do with this cognitive bias called the halo effect, which describes our penchant to admire one quality in a person and jump to the conclusion that they must be perfect overall. So we enjoy a pop star's music, we jump to the conclusion that they must be educated, nurturing, that they care about us as much as we care about them.
Oh my gosh.
That maybe they align politically with our values, even though there's no evidence to suggest that. And that phenomenon, in combination with mass mistrust of authority figures like the government, the traditional religious institution, or the healthcare establishment, those things combined have created this intense halo surrounding celebrities who are not just here to entertain us anymore. Now we perceive them as figures who are here to save us.
Sure.
And that is setting up these very brutal dynamics in stan communities.
Do you find, even when you explain that in such clear terms, that someone who is so attached to a certain celebrity will go, but no, they are a good person and they are important to me? Like, how do you make that distinction of the real world versus that parasocial relationship that is not a two-way street?
Yeah, I do get feedback sometimes from readers, now that the book has been out for about a month, that they feel #attacked by some of the subjects that I talk about in the book. And they mean that somewhat facetiously.
Sure.
It is really, it can create some cognitive dissonance to read about these subjects like cognitive biases, which can seem a little removed, a little dry in the context of such relatable ideas like celebrity worship. You know, all of these things apply to each of us. I myself have experienced parasocial relationships with figures that, you know, were pretty hallucinatory and have had to, you know, look at myself and my own behaviors and my own expectations for public figures. But it all goes back to, you know, this idea that we're looking for role models in society. You know, we are looking for people to help us with our identity, with our survival. The halo effect stemmed from a time when we were living in small communities in human history. You would see someone in your tribe with big muscles or intact teeth, and you would jump to a reasonable conclusion that they were probably a skilled fighter or a skilled hunter, and thus good to align with for survival purposes. We're now mapping those inclinations onto these modern parasocial relationships without realizing that that's what's happening. And so I find that it's so interesting to learn about these dynamics that it makes it kind of easier to stomach.
Sure. Well, we're just trying to make sense of a world, but sometimes things just don't make sense. You just gotta keep it moving and do your best.
Yes, that's exactly it. You know, I'm not creating or attempting to create any like shame or judgment about these biases or about these behaviors. I'm just trying to create awareness so that I can really generate more skepticism of my own behaviors and compassion towards other people's.
Yeah. Manifestation is another big one. A lot of people are jumping on board with that. I hear that term all the time.
Yeah.
Is there kind of a healthy boundary to set there of goals and a plan is great, but just thinking something in your mind isn't going to make it magically appear?
100%. Yeah, no, there's so much evidence to suggest that your attitude or your mindset can affect outcomes, can be beneficial to you. But I've found that in the digital age, especially post-COVID lockdown and during that time, there was a real need to reclaim agency, and there were so many sort of ill-intentioned or power-hungry manifestation guru type figures who were appearing on people's TikTok For You pages and promising that they have this bespoke manifestation technique that if you just sign up for $25 a month, you can learn it and you can yield all these positive benefits. And if this doesn't work for you, well, that's your fault. You know, you did not practice manifestation properly, and that can come with some really sort of nefarious and victim-blamey side effects. But in that chapter, I argue that ideas of manifestation, at least the most dogmatic end of them, are their own kind of conspiracy theory because they are this misattribution of cause and effect. And so that can send some people down a slightly more pernicious rabbit hole.
It's okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through it together. Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. We're happy to have you in town.
Oh, yeah. I love Portland.
Good. And we have the sun shining for you. Hey, Amanda will be speaking at the Alberta Rose Theatre tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. We'll have more on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.